Hey everyone, Vortex TCG here, and today I'm going to be starting my Ultimate Cup coverage. If you didn't know, the Ultimate Cup has had some rule changes, and it made me start to think about certain decks that might end up being very powerful coming into the Ultimate Cup format. We've currently had a couple of games and tournaments played under these Ultimate Cup rules, and what I want to do today is showcase to you guys one of my favorite decks that I've seen from the Ultimate Cup so far. It is DarkKnightmon. DarkKnightmon is a personal favorite of mine. It helped me get top 4 at Living Realms second year anniversary, and I think it's a deck that's severely underrated. The deck has a lot of tools that normal decks tend to not. It has a strong early game, but also has an incredibly strong late game. So if you're looking forward to this deck profile, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and let's get straight into the deck profile, shall we?
Okay, and let's get started on the deck profile. We're going to start off with the eggs, which is the 4 Pagumon. Still the best black Digimon egg that you'd be playing in this game. There's also, sometimes you can play the additional DP increase one, but for me, I personally think that this one is the best. Helps you cycle through your deck, and yeah, I think this one is just way too good. So we only play 4 eggs in this deck. You can play a 5th, but I really do prioritize the Pagumon search, so we only play 4 eggs. Then we get on to the rookies, and starting off we have the 4 Monitormon. This is your main searcher of the deck, I guess, at level 3 anyways. Gets revealed top 4, add 2 cards that are either black with Knightmon or Deadly-Axemon in their names, or with Twilight in their traits. One of the awkward things about Dark Knight in general is that it was printed in a way where it wasn't future-proof of the Twilight call, essentially. So some cards have Twilight in them and some don't, and some are Knightmon instead of Deadly-Axemon. So it allows you to add 2, which is really important because you do need to find 2 pieces most of the time with your Digicross targets and other level 4s in general, and it allows you to search out the Tamer. So this card is very useful, and I play it at 4. Then we get on to the hate cards. We play 2 Chumon. Memory gain is very rampant in this game, quite frankly, and you have to play 2 Chumon, quite frankly, in my opinion. Then we also play 2 Chikurimon. Now, the Chikurimon can affect you. However, if you have this in play, essentially, it doesn't really matter because you're doing way more harm to your opponent than you're doing to yourself, essentially. And if this is always a problem, you can always go into a level 4 because this deck is primarily level 4s. So it alleviates the issue a little bit. So those are all the rookies. We only play 8 rookies. It's pretty low, but we play primarily level 4s. And speaking of level 4s, we go on to the other searcher in Deadly-Axemon. This is one that I wasn't too keen on originally. Allows you to on-play reveal top 5, add 2 cards with Knightmon in their names to your hand, and then as an inheritable, you gain 2k DP. The 2k DP inheritable does matter sometimes. The search is really nice, especially when you play it off stuff like the Dark Knights themselves. Essentially, when your Dark Knight gets deleted, you can play this guy and a Skull Knight, and having a search on deletion, essentially, while also going into another guy, I think is just really ridiculous. So we max out of the Deadly-Axemon. Then we get on to probably the best piece in the Skull Knightmon. This card is insane. It allows you to trash all your Digievolutions cards from your Deadly-Axemon and place it at the bottom of this Digievolution sources to digivolve this Digimon into Knightmon without paying its memory cost. So essentially, this is a very cheap way of going into one of the Dark Knightmons, essentially. Very powerful, and it immediately gets you, as you're swinging, you're immediately getting the effect of the security attack +1, and you're also just playing a guy for free. So yeah, this card is kind of insane. Security set +1, really good in any deck, quite frankly. the ability to skip an evolution, essentially, obviously really powerful, so we play 4 of it. Then we play, obviously, 4 of the Skullknightmon Mighty Axe mode. The good thing about this one and the other one that I'm going to show you is that they both count as Skull Knights and Deadly Axemon. On play, you get to reveal top 3 cards of your deck, then add one with Knightmon in its name, 1 Deadly Axemon, or a Nene Amano, which is the tamer of the deck, to your hand, and then trash the rest. And then if you digicross this with 2 cards, you can delete a guy with 4 costs or less. And to digicross, it's a -1, so you have to digicross with a Deadly Axemon and a Skullknightmon. This is another really good searcher alongside the normal Deadly Axemon, but also, if you're playing it, you can always play the digicross requirements if you're playing a guy, I believe. So you could, if you need to, you don't really do this much, but if you need to, you can play this guy from one of the DarkKnightmons, and then obviously you won't get the reduction of the cost, but you can also delete a guy. So it becomes very powerful, to say the least. Like, I think this card is very underestimated, let me put it that way. I think it is genuinely insane. Then to round off the Skull Knight Deadly Axemon stuff, we play 4 Cavalier mode. This one really helps you go for games, quite honestly, because it gives, when you Digivolve, it also counts as Skull Knight and a Deadly Axe. It gains jamming and blocker, so it's a really good defensive option, and it also is a very aggressive option as well, because most of the time you're going to go into the Skullknightmon, into the Skull Knight Cavalier mode, which means you can swing for 5k, 2 checks, and they don't really have an answer for it. It becomes a very safe swing, and it does a lot of damage very quickly. And if it does survive, which it will, you can go then into your DarkKnightmons, which will then give you value when it does die. So yeah, for me, I think you play 4 of this. I know some lists only play 2 of it, but I think this card it does so much for the deck, quite frankly. Then we get onto the final level 4, and it is 2 Grumblemon. Sometimes you'll have trouble finishing the game, quite frankly, and Grumblemon's there to save it, essentially. It's just something you need, essentially. Like, if you can, potentially swing for game and you have an option to, you take it, and the Grumblemon definitely helps you get there. So those are all the level 4s, and let's get on to the level 5s. To start off, we are playing 4 of the DarkKnightmon from BT10. This card is insane. I don't have much words for it, but on play it's a de-digivolve. So if you play it from a certain effect, which we'll get into in a bit, you can just de-digivolve a guy, and as you're playing a guy, usually from the deletion effect, you can use its digicross effect, digicross -2. It requires a Skull Knight and a Deadly Axemon. And if you do, you get to delete a play cost of 5 or less. This is huge because a lot of the level 4s tend to be 5 costs, so if they force themselves out and go into a level 5 to pass turn, you essentially punish them straight away, and you do so much damage to their board, because essentially what you've done is that you've made a guy that is really hard to delete, you've cleared their board, and if you do delete this somehow, you bring out another guy. So the card's insane, quite frankly. It does cost 4 to go into, but we never play it for the Digievolution cost, at least this one. So yeah, we play 4 of it. It's insane. Then we also get onto the BT7 DarkKnightmon. This one is also very good. It's really good in grind game scenarios. For example, if you just need a blocker, this guy is able to do it, and if you need to, extend your plays further, it's really good. Essentially, if you play it on play, you can place a Skull Knight and or a Deadly Axe from hand or trash underneath this as Digievolution sources. And if this card was to get deleted, you could play a Skull Knight and a Deadly Axemon from the source, unsuspended, without paying the memory costs. So essentially, you're paying like free memory for a guy that's essentially really sticky to get rid of. And when you do get rid of him, you bring out 2 other guys, and guess what that can do? You can go into another Digicross. You can Digivolve on the following turn. It's genuinely insane. So much pressure from this card, and I play it at 3. You shouldn't play more than 3, quite frankly. If you play more than 3, you'll end up bricking, at least on some of the Dark Knights, and you primarily want to see your level 4 pieces more. If you find at least one of these guys, it's usually pretty good that way. So those level 5s. And so we get on to the Lonely level 6. It is the Dark Knight X Antibody. Costs 4 to Digivolve from a Knightmon, and when Digivolving you can return a black or purple card. Doesn't have to be a Dark Knight, but it just can't be itself essentially. And then if there's a Dark Knight or X Antibody underneath this, you can delete a tamer and then unsuspend this Digimon. So essentially it allows you to control your opponent's field so much. This is your win card essentially if you're playing against stuff like Blue Flare, anything that requires to go underneath tamers, because as soon as that one goes, it's problematic for them. It also has the on deletion effect of you may play a DarkKnightmon from your trash without paying its memory cost. So essentially you can go into any of the DarkKnightmons. You mainly want to go into this one because this one allows you to go into another guy and then another guy. But yeah, with another card, which is the main tamer of the deck, this becomes essentially 3 blocks, a deletion, tamer deletion, and it's insane to say the least. So we don't play 4 because it does get bricky sometimes, but 3 I found out is a really good amount, so we play 3. Now we would play DefXmon, but we can't play DefXmon in this tournament, which is fine. It does suck a little bit, but here we are. We're going to the Tamers now. 4 Nene Amano. I know people are cutting this card, but for me, you need this card, quite frankly, because it helps you control the field essentially. All your guys essentially become blockers, and that's really important. It's also another search, and if you were to combo it with DarkKnightmon X Antibody, you essentially get to go into X Antibody for 2 memory, deleting the tamer, and then also unsuspending, which could swing you a turn. So we play 4 of it. Yeah, I think the card, you need to play 4 of this card, quite frankly. So we do that, and then to round it off, we play 2 Izzy Azumi. I've been tempted to go to 3 because there has been times where I've like struggled for memory, especially like just setting myself to 3. But at the moment 2's fine, I think. The card just does everything essentially. It's really good in security, it's really good to reset your opponent. Like it's an insane card. It's the best, I would go as far as to say one of the best tamers ever made, quite frankly. And we play it, so we play it at 2 for the time being. Then we get on to options, and one that I know people don't like running that much is Immortal Ruler. I think this card, you need to play it because it helps you in your grind games so much, to the point where I think it just does so much. So essentially you trash the top 3 cards of your deck, which plays well into certain cards, and then you may play a DarkKnightmon from trash for its pay cost, but if it has Digicross requirements, you can use the Digicross from trash instead of from your hand. So essentially this becomes DarkKnightmon 5 and 6 in the deck, and DarkKnightmon is an insane card. So we obviously play max of the DarkKnightmon, so we play even more copies of it. So yeah, you play 2 of it. Then we go into 4 Pride Memory Boost. Again, sometimes we have struggled to, get to 3 memory or 4 memory. 4 memory is usually the good point that we want to be at, essentially. And Pride Memory Boost does help this situation. It's good to hit in security, and it also helps, I believe, all your bottom end. So I believe in this deck it's currently 24 cards. You can hit 24 cards with this card, and yeah, and things go to trash as well, which is good for the Immortal Ruler. So yes, I play 4 of this card. I know people are playing like 2 or 3, but you have to max out on this card in my opinion. And then to end it off, we play 2 Iron Fisted Onslaught. Sometimes we just need to get rid of guys, and this is one way to do it. Essentially, once they get into level 6s, it becomes really much more harder, essentially, to get rid of them. Because if you go into a Digivolve from level 6 to level 5, you're not deleting the guy, essentially. So you need to find a way to get rid of big bodies, and Iron Fist Onslaught does that for you.
Anyways, that has been my deck profile for DarkKnightmon in the Ultimate Cup rule set. And for me, I think that this deck has a long way to go. I think there's a lot of potential future for this deck, especially that it's also coming out in EX4, I believe, with support connected to Blue Flare. One of the great things that Dark Knight does very well is that it's very adaptable. You don't really play level 3s that much, so you're able to play a lot of level 3s that disrupt your opponent, and I think that makes this deck very strong in my opinion. But what do you guys think? What do you think about the deck profile? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I will see you guys next time.